read Autobiography of a Yogi for the first time. It changed his life. He took the next bus from New York to California and found Paramahansa Yogananda, our guru, in Los Angeles and asked to become his disciple. At that point, he didn't even know what guru meant. And he had read the Autobiography of a Yogi, but and had found many things that were very hard for him to believe in it. Many accounts of miracles that him, with his Western, logical, intellectual mind, had a hard time reconciling. But the heart and vibration that he received while reading this book from what became very soon after his guru, he knew that his guru was speaking the truth, and he knew that it was impossible for the saint who wrote this book to be saying anything that wasn't the absolute truth. And so he, let's say on about page 8, where Lahiri Mahashaya is manifesting himself in a wheat field, Swami said he had to just put that concept on the shelf and say, I think I'm not quite ready to understand this yet, but it doesn't change that I know this man is speaking the absolute truth. So even though we may not be able to ourselves manifest the same things that the great masters are able to manifest, still we can know that it is also our destiny to manifest such things. The great ones, the saints, the masters who have their consciousness 100% united with the Creator, with the infinite, all-knowing consciousness of God, have no problem surmounting the obstacles of Maya, of duality, of the laws of gravity, of the laws, of light and dark, of death and life, of disease, of health. They surpass them without any problem. They are all, in fact, in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which, again, puts them at one, their consciousness at one with the infinite cosmic consciousness, and allows them to understand life at a level that we don't understand it. Let's just put it that way. I'm going to read a few lines from Autobiography of a Yogi. One is from the poem Samadhi, which Yogananda wrote while he was on a subway in New York City. And he told Swamiji later that he was in a state of Samadhi when he was able to write down this poem. And he said he just went back and forth on the same line while he was in Samadhi writing it. And Swami said, so did they ever come to ask you for your ticket? Did anybody bother you that you stayed on for so long? And he said, they didn't see me. So his consciousness was at such a different level that the ticket takers just didn't really notice him. So going along with some of the things that we're saying about they overcome the obstacles of Maya, here's just a few of the lines from that poem. Vanish the veils of light and shade. Gone the dim sensory mirage. Love, hate, health, disease, life, death. Perished these false shadows on the screen of duality. The storm of Maya stilled by magic wand of intuition deep. He says a lot more here, and then I'll continue. Samadhi but extends my conscious realm beyond limits of the mortal frame to the farthest boundaries of eternity. All space floats like an iceberg in my mental sea, colossal container I of all things made. By deeper, longer, thirsty, guru-given meditation comes this celestial Samadhi. Oceans stand revealed, shining electrons, till at last sound of cosmic drum vanish the grosser lights into eternal rays of all-pervading bliss. So this is the reality of these great masters and all the true saints of India and all religions. And just as we talk a little bit more about the law of miracles, I'm going to read a paragraph from the Law of Miracles chapter. A yogi who, through perfect meditation, has merged his consciousness with the Creator, perceives the cosmical essence as light. To him, there is no difference between the light rays composing water and the light rays composing land. Free from matter consciousness, a master transfers his body of light with equal ease over the light rays of earth, water, fire, or air. Long concentrated on the liberating spiritual eye has enabled the yogi to destroy all delusions concerning matter and its gravitational weight. Thenceforth, he sees the universe as an essentially undifferentiated mass of light. The yogis have the perfect power of mind control, of concentration. They have the ability to control life force, lightrons, and their awareness, as I said earlier, is infinite and united with the Creator. And therefore, they can rearrange light, they can rearrange matter, and create what we call miracles. And to them, it's not miracles. To them, everything is light. And being able to move energy, control light, is nothing to them. It's just part of what they do. And if they are guided by divine will, who they're also united with God in divine will, to answer the prayers of their devotees, to alter circumstances to create a so-called miracle for the faith of their loved ones, then that will happen. And when we think of the types of miracles that are in the autobiography, they're way too numerous to mention, but the resurrection of Sri Yukteswar, Babaji manifesting the golden temple in the Himalayas, Babaji coming over the Ganges as a ball of light and materializing with Mataji and Lahiri Mahashaya. And, they can change weather, they can alter circumstances, they can come to our divine aid. And all of these things, we think, it's so far from my reality. That's so great for them, but it's impossible to conceive that I would ever be able to perform such a miracle or perform such a feat. And yet, they tell us we have this birthright. This is the birthright of our soul as well as their souls. Christ said, "These things and greater shall you do also." And the masters have told us, this is how we do it. This is what you need to practice in order to be like we are, one with God. And we start with concentration. The very first thing we learn in the basic course is the concentration technique of Hong Sa. And concentrating on the breath. Experiencing the stillness at the center of each breath, going deeper into that stillness until we reach the breathless state. Even if that breathless state is still very short, it is there. And we can imagine, okay, that breathless state just gets longer. The gurus are all in breathlessness when they're in samadhi. We're tuning in to the vibration of Aham Saha. I am infinite spirit. We're affirming that about ourselves. We're gazing up at the spiritual eye. We're gazing up into the divine light, the doorway to infinite consciousness. We do this regularly, every day in our meditation and hopefully throughout the day. We gaze up, and whether or not we see the divine light, it is there. We know it's there behind closed eyes. We can feel the inspiration when we gaze up. This is what we're being trained to do every day. Energization exercises that Yogananda gave us. Become aware of cosmic energy. Learn to bring it to yourself. Learn to direct it. And then once we learn to direct it, we can direct it beyond our body in healing prayers. Send that healing energy out. Send that cosmic energy to others. This is the beginning of our miracles. And then the Om technique, we listen to the inner sounds, we commune with infinite vibration in the world. Kriya, moving energy up and down our spine until we're able to take all the energy of our astral body and bring it in an upward state. These are all things that we're taught on a daily basis, and that's why they say practice these faithfully and regularly, and you will become what we are. You are our disciples, you must practice what we teach you, because then you too can help others. And already, we attract divine blessings. Already we feel calmness and peace that we never felt before. We feel some inner joy that we have in our life, this meaning that we didn't have before. And we can share that with others. We attract divine aid. We attract the gurus. They're just waiting to give us their guidance and their aid. We call for it and they bring it to us. Even people not on the spiritual path, you think of an athlete, and they're running, let's say, a marathon, or they're running an Olympic race, and they're at the very, 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 very end of their possible limit of endurance, and they have no more energy to give, yet with willpower, with concentration, they draw cosmic energy, and they keep going. They have a second wind, and they keep going. This is all part of the universal law of being able to draw divine power to ourselves. And divine aid, Swami Kriyananda tells us a story about a fellow monk in the ashram of his guru in Los Angeles. And he was climbing in the mountains. And he came to a place in the mountains where coming up one side of the mountain, it was fine, but it was impossible to descend a different way. But he came to a place, it was like a curve. He had to sort of go backwards before he could continue to climb up. And there was no other way down. So he was stuck on this mountainside. He had to get up over this ledge and over, and he knew gravitationally it was impossible. But he said, I have no other choice. I can either sit here and starve, or I can just keep trying. So with his willpower and with his energy, he just, he kept trying to climb the cliff backwards, and then he'd fall. And then he'd climb, and he did it again and again. And he just said, I'm just going to keep going. I'll put out this willpower. And then on the 25th time that he did it, he felt a force holding him up against the mountain, and he was able to go over this backwards area and arrive at the top, was where he needed to go. The divine power will aid us if we call on it with deep concentration and willpower. And infinite willpower is what these gurus have. So we think of these things happening to us also. Yogananda reminds us that we must wake up from this dream of reality, of duality. This dream of light and dark, which he tells us is a cosmic motion picture show. And he says, just don't get caught up in the suffering of the motion picture show. God has created this Maya for us to learn. If nobody was suffering, if everybody was in bliss, nobody would try to get out of duality, to get out of Maya. So therefore suffering is there. And yet don't get caught up in it. And he tells a story of meditating in his attic meditation room at 4 Garpa Road in Kolkata when he's young. And he had a vision of himself on the battlefield during World War I. And he was shot on the beach, and this vision was so real, he thought this was it, and he thought he was taking his last breath, and he thought, this is it, this is the end of my life. And just as he started to float into unconsciousness, he found himself sitting in lotus meditation in his attic meditation room in Calcutta. And he thought, oh, I'm alive, wow, I'm alive. And so then he thought, that's great, I'm still alive. And then all of a sudden he was put back on the dying on the battlefield, and and just dead already on the battlefield. And he said, Lord, am I dead on the battlefield, or am I meditating in my meditation room? And he said, through the vibration of the ether formed itself into a sound that said, what does life or death have to do with light? The light is the primary principle of the universe that we're all trying to tune into. Let's take our attention off of the motion picture show and put it onto that singular beam of light that is creating our bodies, that is creating our lives. No, we are the actors and we are the audience of the motion picture show. But we can't forget, we can enjoy it. We can be in the world, but not of it. Let's never forget our true home. Let's never forget that beam of light that is creating this. And awake. As Yogananda said, we were born here to become awake. Let's become awake.
I will add a few more thoughts to that. When we talk about miracles, we kind of think of something which is like blows our mind off. It's like, wow, something completely unfathomable to our own intellectual minds. Even in our Raja Yoga classes or the books that we read about siddhis that the yogis get, they're pretty phenomenal. They're like walking on the water or levitating. And it's like, boy, this is awesome. Jayaji recently in his talk gave this example when someone asked him about, like, you've been practicing these techniques, these teachings for 50 odd years, and can you show some miracles to us? Like, can you walk on water, or can you levitate? Or like, at least move your hand and bring something out, no? But Jayaji, and we all know that he's a very humble man, he's like, no, none of the above was his answer. And after a pause, he said basically, but I think one thing is there, which is I can control my reactive processes and I choose to be happy under all circumstances. Of course, the guy wasn't quite impressed with that thing. And to be honest with you, when he told me or when I heard the story, at that instance, neither was I too much excited because he walking on water. That is awesome, isn't that? So, but then the little bit more we ponder, as Dayaji was mentioning about different techniques, we teach Hamsa about your breath. That's all. That's simple. But then those of us who actually gave some effort, some time to that, we realize, oh boy, this is not quite as easy as she's put. And then the mind just starts going here and there. And then we put more effort into that and it's like, oh boy, this is not as easy as we think. And then we come here, we have a nice time. The moment we go outside these doors, the life situations come at it and then it's like, all of a sudden there is no center anymore. We say, like, where did all that disappear? And then we again go back to what was Jayaji saying again? He said after 40 years of the practices, he has achieved a siddhi where he can choose to be happy under all circumstances. I said, boy, well, that is impressive. That is something can be for me. Because on the real material plane where we live, you see, even if you learn on how to walk on water, we have boats. You see, it doesn't really quite help in that. But if we can choose to master our own energy, that might have some relevance to our own lives. Master has talked so many miracle stories there, he was mentioning some of them. And in autobiography, and Swami also talked about many miracles that Master himself did, including raising dead people to bring them back to the life. And one of his disciples, Dr. Lewis, asked Master, like, why did you bring that man back to life? Did you think it was relevant? He said, no, never. And very categorically he says, I never do anything that Divine Mother doesn't want me to do. And very interestingly, last week's topic, when both Dayaji and Keshav were talking about, is tuning into the divine will. And what Master was trying to say there is, it was a divine will that the man who is so-called dead can be brought back to life. And what he offered is to be an instrument. And this is, as again Dayaji was saying, it's like God's dream, as we know, no? If you look at the creation, it is so phenomenally complex and beyond fathomable. The Creator wants to bring again someone back to life. It is a trivial thing for him or for her. And what Master chose is basically to be an active instrument. And that is what I think I want to speak a little bit more about, is basically if we tune in, if this is the part of the divine, if this is what she wants to do for us, the moment we put out whatever small tiny part that we have to do, the providence supports, and that support sometimes comes in such a gigantic way that kind of blows people's minds off, those who don't understand just as an outsider. Moses, who was the creator of Judaism, if I may say, was, his story says that at that time all the Jews were slaves under a king, and Moses was given the divine ordination that go and tell the king that they need to be freed because that is the will of the divine. Moses was just one man, He said, like, how on earth can I go to the king and why will he listen? He says, do as I have been told. And then he gives him a staff and he said, like, go and show him the staff. That staff will turn into a snake. That miracle itself will be enough to convince the king. So Moses goes to the king and then says that I am here on the behalf of our Lord God in heaven, and He wants you to free all the Jews, all the slaves. And of course, the king wasn't quite impressed, and he says, "Well, this is the staff." And in front of the king, the staff turns out to the snake, and for a moment, even the king is taken aback. But then he comes back and says, "You are a magician. You are tricking me. Take this guy off. Nobody's going to just get freed like that." And Moses goes back and tells Lord again, "What more can I do?" He says, "Do you do your part, and the rest I will take care of it." So keep pestering, keep talking to the king, tell him that he needs to obey the divine will, or else great cataclysm will fall upon his kingdom. And as the story progresses, torrential rain in the desert never occurred. Lots of diseases killing most of his kingdom. Many people start suffering to the extent that the kingdom faced extinction when the king finally had to surrender to the divine will. Something, and then finally he of course freed the Jews. What Moses offered there was very tiny in terms of that he didn't have a big army behind him. What he had was a determined will that, okay, I am going to follow what the divine has asked me to do to the best of my capacity. And then the providence supported him to the certain extent that those who were slaves then, not necessarily as high consciousness as Moses possessed, looked at him as God. But you see, he wasn't necessarily. That's a providence which was supporting it. And that is the principle, which is we do our part and we draw the grace. And that sometimes just manifests as a great miracle. Master talks about his story when he was going to buy Mount Washington. He knew that this is what Divine Mother wants him to do. The next day he had to give $5,000. He don't know how. He know this is going to happen, but how was still not told. And then he sees the name right in front of him as he opens the dictionary. A lady, he has already spoken to her, but he calls one more time. And she said, "Yes, I have $5,000 more for you to lend." Swami Kriyananda wrote Essence of the Bhagavad Gita in 3 months. That's a pretty big fat book. It talks about commentaries on that extremely complicated scripture. And Swamiji wrote it in 3 months. Those who were trying to help him edit it couldn't keep with him. And that is because, again, it was the will of the Master that it needs to come out. Swami was in tune. He offered his hand, his unconditional participation in that divine plan. And as a devotee, that is a call to all of us. We don't need to look at miracles to the extent they are very, very complicated. Something we will achieve when we will be one fine day attain enlightenment. It is a call, as Ali was telling. We have been given choices. We have been given practices. We raise our consciousness. We live into that moment. And even the mundane, ordinary things that we are doing into this life, they start becoming sprouting like miracles. In that higher awareness, to whatever degree we all can reach based on our own capacities. When we go out, we start seeing the connections. A stranger onto the road doesn't seem like a stranger, looks like an old friend. The trees are looking much beautiful. We see that we're exchanging the air with each other. No, even the flower, a beautiful fragrance or the color starts manifesting and then creating more joy inside us. Because we see this is a miracle. Living body, walking onto the street, which we kind of take it for granted. How many cells are participating to make this whole animation possible? Small, tiny things which are so ordinary just becomes a living miracle. When we practice teachings, as the Master said, our entire life, and we have the potential to create it as a living miracle. We don't necessarily have to wait till we are able to walk on water or levitate, because that will also come as the scripture and the Master's promise. It is our destiny, each and every soul's destiny, But when it will come, it is like we are here, there is a big river in front of us. The destination, Divine Mother has ordained us to go to the other side. I don't know how to swim. I have to go, I am going to continue walking. And then the lotuses might come to support your feet. Stones might appear to make that journey possible. And you will keep walking till that hurdle is overcome, you reach to the other end. You look back, and what other world perceives as a miracle, for us in those cases just becomes like an everyday affair. And that is what the path, or that is what the Masters wants from us, is live to your best and open yourself, do your part, and let the Providence do the miracles through you. Joy to you.